Okay, good evening. It is 5:04. Today's November 20th. This is the Planning Advisory Board meeting, and we call the meeting to order. I will read a roll call. Please indicate if you are present. Melanie Hartwig Davis.
Present.
Lawrence Blevins. Edward Evans.
Present.
Van Mason.
Present.
Hi, Van.
Hey.
Hey. Elizabeth Rossford.
Present.
Dawn Stolfus.
Present.
And myself, Gus Pertz.
Lawrence is present.
Lawrence
Just
is
he's
president, just
virtual.
muted.
Is he?
Yes,
Okay.
he's up there.
Oh,
There
I
it is.
apologize. Present.
There you go. Thank you,
Got
Lawrence. Okay, we have 7 members present. We do have a quorum. The first order of business is a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second motion has been made to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. The Planning Advisory Board draft of the Region 9 Plan and Comprehensive Zoning Map. Tonight's agenda starts with the public hearing on the new applications for Region 9. That is new application. There will be an opportunity to provide testimony on new zoning in Region 9 that were submitted during the PAB review process. The PAB will listen to comments tonight and come back to deliberate on the new applications on December the 4th. We now open the public hearing. Every speaker will be afforded 2 minutes per property. When you're called to speak, please come to the front and provide your name and address before providing your comments. So is there any, I have 4 people signed up to speak. Is there anybody else? Okay, then we're going to start with our speakers. Mr. Quirk.
Is there a microphone or?
If you stand by what we call the owl, it will pick your voice up.
Just trying to be as wise as the owl.
So move a little bit closer over here to the owl
There's
and.
some instructions right there that you, make sure you read those.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, Mr. Kurtz, members of the Planning Advisory Board. There's been a little confusion, I think, in the background to this because of the fact that the 2 applications are side by side.
Speak up just a little bit because there's 2 members that are on board, online, and I want to make sure they hear you.
And your name and your location. If there's
Okay.
a,
Yeah, because we don't.
Yeah.
know.
no,
There's the owl. The owl is a microphone.
There's a,
instructions.
over here that's highlighted, correct.
Standing where you are is fine. If you stand right on top of the microphone, it's gonna be.
Okay, great. I'll speak to.
No, you can take like 2 steps back. There you go.
There you go.
I'll speak to the owl then. Yes, it's been a little bit confusing because
Your name and your address for correct.
Peter Quirk, 230 Riverside Road, Edgewater, Maryland, 21037. Yeah, there's been a little bit of confusion, which I think started back in 2018 as to what exactly the 58 Leyland Road residents, what marinas are there or not there. In the survey of the marinas in Edgewater in 2018, Doc's Boatyard was basically cited for having 31 or 32 slips. Well, that turns out to be incorrect because that 32 was the only functioning marina at that time was in fact the Warehouse Creek Marina, but it wasn't called Dock, it was called the Warehouse Creek Marina. And Dock in the application now actually refers to the marina, well, not the non-marina next door to 58 Leyland. So a lot of the statements that are attributable to 58 and 25 are in fact quite interchangeable. The one thing that I need to make clear is that 58 Leyland, we've known for quite some time because we've been involved in pier construction there, which was not permitted. And on 2 occasions, the people at 58, the Warehouse Creek Marina, had to remove pilings under instruction from the county MDE and the Corps of Engineers. So we're quite familiar with that marina. So it is not a 32 boat marina, it's a 12 boat marina. The other thing that we've noticed over time is that the attribution of the name is not the only thing which has happened between the two. But in the case of the marina in 58, there's definitely a non-conforming use there. And that's well documented. And it's got, I'll just give you some photographs here. Lends some meat to the bone. And that's the 58 marina there. As you can see, it's a very rural environment, despite the fact that it's quite central in Edgewater. It's retained a very marked residential character. And part of the reason for that is that the marina has been restricted to 12 boats. There is no non-conforming use permit, and we checked this with P&Z. There's no non-conforming use permit for the property at 25. So again, there's been some confusion there between the status of both of the marinas. The 58 has been in operation for a long time and under this 12 boat rule. And during that time, the creek, Warehouse Creek, has actually become more residential, not less residential. There was an area up in the head of the creek, which was vacant for a while, and the closest thing to the water was in fact a commercial area up there. But recently it was redeveloped, and there are now a series of rather large houses that go around the head of the creek. So apart from 58 Leland, and the marina there is no other commercial use on the creek. And we live across from this, and we use the waterway, and we feel that the creek is sufficiently small. It's less than half a mile long, and it's also narrow for the most part. And we feel that it would be overwhelmed. We've also noticed on the internet that there is a plan afoot to put a 13-unit structure of some kind on 58 Leland. I could provide the reference if you wish. But anyway, this plan is cited there as being a multi-family structure with 13 units. But it's got a big sign on the top of it, which is a bit strange for a multi-family unit. So we suspect that if there was a rezoning, that would in fact become a commercial structure of some sort. And it's totally out of character with the creek. We've had a long-standing commitment in the creek to residential and a quiet neighborhood. I'm sorry?
Your 2 minutes are up.
Oh,
So wrap up
that was quick. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I think that's about everything I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple
Yeah.
questions, clarification. You're not representing 58 Leland, you're representing Docks, which is separate?
No,
I-
I'm a member of the community that's directly across the.
Across from it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I mentioned that, but
And so the warehouse marina is 58 Leland,
that's correct,
Okay.
yes. And Doc's Boatyard, which is next door,
next door,
is,
Okay,
yes,
not opposite, but next
next
door.
door. It's an adjacent property. I sent a letter earlier this week with a lot of the stuff in it.
Okay.
Okay, so another question. You
Yes.
mentioned that to your knowledge, there's no non-conforming use permit.
On the 25 Leland property, there is no such, permit.
On 58.
On 25 or 58?
58, there is a non-conforming,
There is.
25, no non-conforming. And I checked
But
that.
you're speaking only about, you gotta separate the two. Are you speaking about 25 Leland or 58 Leland?
Well, the problem is the data has been so intermingled, and it's actually quite confusing. I've had.
Well, that's why we're confused.
And yes, well, yeah, 25 does not, we clarified that with the county, does not have a non-conforming Miss Anselmo in the county told us
Okay,
that.
and how many slips are there at 25 to your knowledge?
In the picture, told us 1,000 words. That's the.
But you refer to
That's
That it
twenty-five,
was restricted to 12. Which one is restricted to 12?
that's the Warehouse Creek Marina at
At 58.
58.
Okay,
This picture is the other one at 25,
yeah.
and it's just a simple little L dot. It has no slits.
Mr. Quirk is talking about two applications, so the
Yeah.
first of which is
Yeah.
25 Leland Road, which is, he believes is Doc's Boatyard. That is application CZR9 EDW, and I believe the number is 0400, I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, that's good.
505 is
So that,
58.
so then there's a new one at PAB stage, which is right next door. That is for 58 Leland Road, which Mr. Quirk believes is the Warehouse Creek Marina. And that is that new application of CZR9 EDW 0500.
Right.
So there are
Yes.
two maritime,
Okay.
there's two applications for maritime uses, they're right next door. In fact, when you guys discussed Edgewater 400, a couple weeks ago, you just opted to hold on voting on it because they are right next door.
Got it.
Correct.
So,
And it's even more confusing because
oh, yeah,
the LLC, and that's the only thing it is. The Docks Boatyard LLC, he is actually registered at the address of the other marina. And there's an annex to the house there, and it's called 64 Leland, but it's actually an annex of the real marina. And that's where the registration of Docks Warehouse. So it's really, I'm sorry, it's, it's like this,
Yeah, okay.
all the data. Very confusing.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from board members? Van, Lawrence,
Nope, I don't have anything to ask. at the moment.
Thank you. Good.
okay. Very good. Okay, the next speaker is Elizabeth D. Castile.
And please remember, you come up to state your name, your address of where you live, and then the address or some other way to identify the property you want to speak on.
The laminated,
I don't know. I saw the camera. You can also just stand right there.
yeah.
If you stand right there, it'll be fine.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, there, thank you.
Yeah, that way you're not.
I think better in check. Everyone else is, I can.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, name and address.
Elizabeth Del Castillo. I live at 1300 Holly, HOLLEY Road in Edgewater, Maryland. You don't use the E, it goes to Mayo. It's another Holly.
And which property would you like to speak about?
I'm talking about 58. We should talk about.
58 Leland.
Thanks. First I wanted to thank all the county contacts and offices that helped South River Park through the permitting process to reestablish and fortify our little historic swim beach. So now we have sand, very excited. I only have one picture if you want to share it and pass it. It's really great news and we're very excited. Also, this year we had the best water quality we've had ever. We had two weird anomalies because of some major storms, but we're really excited about that. So we were really excited. We're gonna have swimmers in the water, in clean water, and it's a great asset to our community. And we're gonna have a lot of historic celebrating, and so I really appreciate all the county's help. We already have a lot of increased visitation at our beach now because we also had county help to reinstall our beautiful wall. And we have steps, and we have the elderly and young people coming, and I'm also working with forestry to redo our vegetation plan and everything, so it's just wonderful. Stuff we never thought we'd be able to get done. So that's why we're concerned about any increase in the number of slips in these marinas across the way. I mean, they're kind of sneaky. They'll have a couple boats out there, and all of a sudden you see a couple more come out, and you have to make a call, and somebody comes and helps them, makes them go away. So any expansion of these small marinas, not really to the benefit of the public that needs clean water. So, like for instance, EPA, for recreational vehicles, there's no federal rule in place regulating gray water. Accidental spills happen when the holding tanks are pumped into the tank at the pier. My friend works for a big, huge oil company, and that's his job, is to care that pumping thing. So no drop of oil gets in the ocean. So it's another risk we would have to take. And after all this effort to clean up our beach and make sure the water's getting better, it will set us back tremendously. In regards to 58 Leland, moving from its current, whatever code it is, to MA2 zoning, my economic development hat understands pushing that much value on the property. cover my water quality, environmental person that wants clean, safe water for our kids and wildlife. Says this is too intense. This is like having commercial uses you see on West Street, the possibility of that kind of force. You're gonna have up to 200 parking spaces because you're covering the land at 70%. If he's gonna build all over that, that's gonna be 30,000 square feet on top of 30,000 square feet. You know, there's no brakes on this thing. That's just way too high. So, yes, thank you. And I think that's what I was going to say. You're so good at timing me. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to me. It's a little tiny fee, you know, and we appreciate you considering that this should not happen. Thank you.
So where is the beach in relationship to 58 Leland?
Across, pretty much across the water.
Is it sort of northeast a little bit? Is that what I'm seeing?
Do you have a map?
I'm looking at it
Google
now.
Right here.
Right,
Oh.
Here's Warehouse Creek right there.
right. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah, so where are you at in relation?
Where, Peter, where are we? Not this circle. I should know that. I'm looking upside down. It's not this. Peter, can you come here and tell me where the beach is? Where's your house?
One of those photos.
Where's our beach?
Town beach.
The community beach.
There's a beach there.
Right, they're here, I see that.
There's a little beach
Where's
there.
Where's your house?
Here's the
It's 58 right here.
Right.
Hmm.
Cause this is throwing me, the boat.
Right.
That
Well,
picture, the first one I gave you was taken from the other side of the creek. That's our community, taken from our community beach. But that one,
Okay, up in there.
it's right directly opposite here. I can't quite think. My side's not what it used to be.
There's 58
Did you
Leland.
put in 25
big house.
Leland Road?
Is it this?
It looks like it's right
Oh,
here.
it may be that.
Where's your house? You're next to us.
Mhm.
What's your
Okay,
address?
that,
230 Riverside.
oh yeah, so let's do it.
Yeah.
There it is here. Here.
Okay, so
That's-
where's our
that's
beach?
nice.
Underneath the
Yeah, right
trees?
there. Yeah, and that's where, this was taken from the dock. It's under the trees.
That's us,
Okay,
right
There we
there.
are, right there.
So we are kind of getting slammed.
Yeah.
okay.
Create more turbidity, and so people can't swim and they can drown because they don't know what's up and down. Please never.
Okay, next speaker, Mr. Royer.
Yep, just put the seat, that's fine, and then remember to state your name, address, and which property you want to speak on.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Caleb Royer. I'm the owner of 25 Leland Road. My property is directly adjacent to 55 and 64, and I think I can clear up all of Mr. Quirk's questions. That is one property owned by a gentleman named Bob Sisson. He bought it from basically folks who were underwater and bankrupt. He flipped it after Doc's Boatyard went bankrupt. So Doc's is no more, that doesn't exist anymore, including the company. It was renamed Warehouse Creek. It does have an NCU for all of its slips that are currently there now. So there's no new slips going into that.
How many slips? Is that 12?
No, it's
20, like 21, I got for like the
Right.
right now, right?
So where there was confusion is I have a separate application, CZR9 Edgewater 0400 for 25 Leland Road, also for MA2 zoning. These are two properties. Both have been used as light commercial marinas going back 60 years. That one does have less than 12 slips. We do not have a current NCU. That's sort of a separate, very expensive process. So hopefully that clears up the ownership. I'm speaking in support of 58 Leland Road, Warehouse Creek Marina, which is still called that. These rezonings that made two for both properties are very consistent with their use. Both are still constrained by critical area and development regulations. Neither we nor Bob, the owner of Warehouse Creek, have any intention to increase development, nor is there room for that many parking spaces beyond what's there now, or additional structures. Really, they both are, mine was prior illegally rented, which we purchased the property and would just like to continue with the same number of boats that have been rented there. Bob's has been legally running under an NCU for decades. He's continuing, and there's no intention of expanding the slips or facilities. Everything that our boats use go right out Warehouse Creek, which is a quite sizable creek, to Liberty Marina across the river, or Pier, what used to be Pier 7, right there by Coconut Joe's as well. So we don't believe MA1B is appropriate for this, just because that doesn't match the existing uses and the structures we have, as well as it doesn't match the slip count that is currently under the NCU for 58 Leland Road. And we're confident that there will be no new boats to impact the occasional swimmers across the way, which I live on the other side of the beach. I've never actually seen anyone swimming there, but I'm sure it does happen. That's all I have.
So, sir,
Thank you.
I have a question. You're asking for MA2
For 58, yes, that is the one
for 25,
also, yeah.
both. You're asking 58 and 25.
And they're
Okay.
both highly constrained in any kind of development that could happen. But there's a difference in what type of existing slips they can support.
Very good.
Okay, the 58 and 64.
Van or Lawrence, any questions?
Thank you.
Nope,
No, thank you.
nope.
Okay. Any questions?
No, but the MA2 does give you the option to build.
Subject to any future regulations, which would, of course, make it all possible.
But currently you have no intent to do that. Is what I heard you say, pretty much, right?
How long have you owned the property?
I have owned 25 Leland Road for just over a year. Bob has owned his property for a few years.
And the prior owner of 25 Leland,
Is deceased for 10 years.
and how long did they own the property and not get a non-conforming use permit?
10 years.
10 years.
Mm.
How much more valuable is the property when you get it? I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
so any other questions from board members?
No, I don't have any.
Their reasoning of why, I'm still not understanding why they want to make it.
Right. If there's no plan to do anything, and you're currently sitting at an R1, which works for you all. You have no desire to do anything different, but yet you're asking for an MA2.
That's a good question. So there's two properties, slightly different needs, which kind of makes sense of area too. So 58, so my property 25 is under R1, which has commercial rental as well as a large covered slip, which is not allowed under MA1B. So if MA1B was written slightly different, we'd be happy with MA1B, but it's not where we are.
Mr.
Or
Also, in the R1, I don't believe those things are allowed either, and it does not have a certified SDU for the 25 Leland Road, which is why. Is that correct, Mr.
is
Whitaker?
that we have to use that cottage industry of extremely expensive consultants to try to just hold on to our own structure. For 58, there's
Go back to 25 for a second.
Sure.
You're saying that right now you have commercial and a large covered structure. I wrote
to
down,
be, yes, to be legal, I'm no longer renting out those slips because it would be illegal.
okay, and your large covered structure is essentially what you want to rent for winter storage
That,
or summer storage or whatever.
that and I'd like to, so the previous owners have all rented slips. I bought the property and not realizing I would have this problem, so I'd like to keep renting those. I'm not doing so because it'd be illegal. And the covered slip is not allowed under anyone, so that's my proxy.
Okay, so with MA2, you would then become conforming. With MA1B, you would no longer be
You'd be
conforming.
non-conforming.
And correct, and my property has already parking spaces. There's not even space short of my front yard or my house to add parking spaces and a restaurant and all those kinds of things. Small property, 25. Would be 58 separate.
Can you ask me
Okay.
one question for you really quick? Can you take a look at this? Can you tell me what that is? This is you, right?
Yeah, no, that's next.
That is
This is next to you, right? Right, but what is
Yes.
it?
If I borrow your
pen, so this kind of,
The addresses on Google Maps are terrible,
Yeah,
but this right
it
here
gives
is,
you right here is where the address.
right,
taken.
that's 5864.
Right.
That's all of these slips which are under an NCO.
Okay.
Mine are these slips right here in the middle. And that big structure is the covered one that's, I have to go
covered
get it
one.
non-conforming. This is another covered one, under a third owner. She
Okay.
doesn't have a good relationship with her her
Okay.
husband.
Got it.
Would it be possible to go into a memorandum of agreement to register with the deed that you are not looking to expand, to put a restaurant or to put a community center or to do something so that the neighbors understand all you want to do is do this conforming and no more expansion.
Ms. Rothbard.
So we don't do contract zoning in Maryland, which essentially that's what you're suggesting, that the owner do something so that he would then get the zoning. So that's not an option, Elizabeth.
Okay, well, I tried.
Okay, is there any other questions?
Okay, should I speak to 58, because there was questions about that one too?
Sure.
And expand in there.
Sure.
So that one, again, it has, you can see it there, 58 and 64 are two addresses, but they're one property. That is wholly owned by an individual and his wife. There's no companies. That house is rented. There's a house there. All the slips are rented. And there's no intent for expanding the dock. There was an application for the dock's boatyard, slightly shady business. Did try to expand that dock, to my understanding, and when that was rejected. I'm sure the 13-unit multifamily was also some of the guys trying to flip it. The current owner has renters and rent slips. That's his intent.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Question I have, Michael, you may be able to answer this. Plan 2040, consistent R1 zoning for this whole area?
Yes, that's the land use in 2040 was for low density residential. We saw situations like this in Region 4, where you have these small marinas where kind of surface of it looks like a residential area. There's a big dock in the back that, you know, sometimes they're renting slips. Sometimes in general in the county, some of these people have come in for non-conforming use certificates, sometimes they haven't. So not every one of those was identified individually in 2040. It looked like a house, and previous, you know, land use having made it look like a house. We consider first now.
Since we don't have it in front of us for everybody, all the board members' information, 0400, which is 25 Leland. Can you state the SAC's recommendation and planning and zoning's recommendation on that request?
So on Edgewater 400, which is 24 Leland Road, I believe the Office of Planning and Zoning is recommending Edgewater 400, 25 Leland Road. The Office of Planning and Zoning is recommending MA1B. The SAC agrees with the OPZ recommendation of MA1B. For Edgewater 500, which is the new application, it was not presented to the SAC because it came in at y'all's review. For that one, staff has a preliminary recommendation prior to hearing anything from the public of R1.
And OPZ has an R1.
OPZ and R1,
No, it's SAC. Got it.
Okay, we're gonna have our discussion.
you can
My concern is,
hold on December 4th, if you'd like, we can discuss
Yeah.
that too.
what I'm thinking is,
Yeah.
my
I'm sorry?
concern is that the OPZ, or is it 25 or 24 Leland?
25.
25.
25 Leland recommended MA1B.
Right.
But on 58 Leland recommended R1. And they're basically neighboring properties,
Correct.
correct?
And they're abutting properties.
Also
But
correct.
does MA1B, from what I understand, if they become MA1B, 25 Leland is still non-conforming.
Yes, but it gets them closer than they currently are.
It gets them closer, and MA, I don't think the intent of Plan 2040 or anybody in that neighborhood wants their name too.
I think we still have people sign up for testimony. We're scheduled to deliberate on this on December 4th, so I recommend the board.
Hold to December 4th.
We'll vote on December 4th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, enough on Leland Road. We will, for those that spoke, we will make that, we'll discuss it and we will vote on December. Okay,
Mhm. No.
It says minimum 1 acre.
that's what's something new.
MA1B is house.
But I mean,
Okay, that, we'll look into all that and
Yeah,
then
we
vote
got
on
those
some
back.
of it. Okay, Phil, you're next. Mr. Hager is speaking on, let's see. It looks like R9 EDW 0505, is that correct? 175 Mayo Road and
That is correct.
Bay Ridge Road, 1655 and 1649. I didn't bring the handout, but I know you gave a handout. And that was it a tire shop?
Yes, it is, along with the resident.
Okay,
It's in the drive.
And we kind
Kinda-
of jumped into this, but Mr. Hager, just for the record,
Yes, I
please,
think the
state your
print-
name, address, what property speak.
I'm just waiting for the theme.
go ahead, okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike.
Name and address.
Yeah.
Good evening, Phil Hager, Hager Land Use. I'm here on behalf of the case that was just introduced, which has a number of different addresses, among them 175 Mayo Road. There's actually 14 individual parcels in this property with 5 different tax accounts and 5 different addresses. Bay Ridge, Mayo, and Blue Ridge Road. So the 3 roads form a rough triangle and the subject property is situated within. The subject property has been part of the holdings of the same company for quite some time. However, there's been a recent change in the leadership. It's younger, more dynamic, and they're interested in community reinvestment and also property enhancement. The existing structures leave a lot to be desired in terms of aesthetics. They're in poor physical condition and the site is substantially underutilized. The tire store is dated and in need of update. The existing residential structure is non-conforming and is awkwardly accessed behind the existing commercial building. Both of these have been the subject of significant community complaints going back for more than a decade. As I noted, the current corporate leadership is interested in redeveloping this property. As part of that redevelopment, they are requesting be rezoned to C4. The request is supported by Plan 2040 in that triangle is designated as commercial. The rezoning of this property to C4 will facilitate the redevelopment of the property, and it will create increased flexibility with regards to bulk regulations, the area lot coverage, and also setbacks. The request is consistent with the existing local roads, their functional classifications, and the traffic volumes. This is an important community visibility center. It will, if this property is redeveloped, it will cure this aesthetic problem. I think it'll make a lot of people a lot happier in the area who have to drive by and look at this eyesore. And it will also cure the existing planning and zoning issues and get rid of an existing non-conformity. So we're asking for C4 on this property.
I just want to state that the building, they have nice hanging baskets of plants all the way across. They have definitely tried to make a tire store look as good as it can. By this basically.
I think that we're seeing the results of this particular ownership. In this case, they're probably trying to put lipstick on a pig, but they are definitely trying to make an improvement. And I think that
if we're able to facilitate this rezoning, it will go much further than what we're able to do with hanging flower pots.
So Mr. Hager, I have a question. If you combine all of the lots together, is that where this 0.7 of an acre comes up?
Yes, they are very tiny parcels.
So they're all small parcels,
Yes.
so.
So altogether, it's
All
0.7.
together. How many parcels are there?
14.
And what, you don't have any submission yet, because you're waiting to see what you get, but what is the plan?
This was all submitted, the application was previously submitted. Are you talking about a? future-
Redevelopment,
Okay.
what's the redevelopment
Well,
plan?
There's no redevelopment plan at this point because there's no, the zoning. hasn't
You're
been
waiting.
approved.
But once the zoning happens, do you know what the plan is?
First step would be to consolidate parcels into one property. Identify what is out there. It's gonna create an opportunity also to some likely tenants that could occupy this space, assuming that the existing tire store does not continue at this location. So that's, you know, part of these things. You need to consolidate what you have and figure out where you're going to go from there. So it'd be a lot of planning necessary once this occurs.
Once that occurs, got
It
it.
needs to be.
I'm not familiar with this, Melanie.
Melanie.
What is the traffic issues or concerns?
There's
on
a ton of Mayo Road's a disaster.
Question is C3 or C4, the traffic impact is one of the, probably the same. Okay, any other questions for Phil, Van, and Lawrence? Do we have any questions for Mr. Hager?
No, so the intention is to make it all one property versus just all these other smaller lots?
That is correct, yes, that we would consolidate parcels into one, so that, you know, as was noted a moment ago, there are some existing transportation issues. All of these things then would be able to be addressed comprehensively. Hypothetically, every one of those parcels has legal access to those roads. So if we would consolidate, then any submittal that would come before the county would be subject not only to Article 18, but also to Article 17, which would allow the county also to review the traffic situation and identify where they would want to have roadway and vehicular access to the site, which could potentially improve the traffic flow in the area.
Because there won't be as many opportunities that it is now, so it would be
Right.
1, 2, right, okay.
I just want to clarify too, that there is a building that faces,
Favorites?
wherever south of that. There's a HISPA restaurant in that building. This does not include the HISPA restaurant. Is that
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
So then it won't include the laundromat, that's.
That they will not.
Is everything behind that?
Is
That
everything?
is not part of this request.
Okay.
Okay, question though. So if you were to get C3, why would you not be able to combine the properties into one?
Well, Ms. Rosberg, it is C3, right? C4 is the.
C4 is what they want.
Okay, so why can you not do that in C3?
You can do that, but the purpose for doing this would be to get to C4 because the existing uses are not currently legal in C3, and also
Oh,
because the lot coverage standards and the separation distances and the setbacks are more generous than the C4, which would actually permit you to do a development that's not only legal, but more in keeping for what you're looking for in this quarter.
so you're essentially non-conforming.
C4 gives them one. Because it's such a small lot.
I just want to
Okay.
clarify too, on Bay Ridge Road comes on what I'm going to call the backside of this property, and those are residential units all across the backside of that. That's an R5, I believe. This is all purple.
What was your question, R5 across the
Just-
street?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about
The existing use has existed as a C4 use illegally for quite some time. So, you know, allowing this to become legal and to be redeveloped is likely to produce a more favorable result than we have right now. So I think those residents are likely to be applauding this change rather than the opposite, given what they've been living through for the past 20 years.
So whatever they do, you won't get increased crap.
Are there any HOAs? Are there any actual housing developments close by? Or are they individual?
These would have been developed.
Would have been individual.
Okay, any
All
other, any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Thank you all very much.
Mr. Hager, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll vote on that and the other new request on December the 4th. No other speakers?
Is there anybody online? Yes.
We do have 3 attendees online. If there are any attendees that would like to speak on new applications, you can use the raise hand feature under reactions.
Nothing?
Then
Okay, so for now, at this point, the record of oral testimony is now closed. Written testimony on Region 9 will be accepted until 11:59 PM on December the 2nd. Written comments can be submitted via the link on the Region 9 hub site and emailed to the Planning Advisory Board at aacounty.org. Or you can do it by mail at 2664 Weaver Road. Okay, next, we will start the Planning Advisory Board draft review of Region 3 Plan Comprehensive Zoning Map. So with the start of that, Mr. Hughes and Mrs. Williams will give us the summary of the public testimony.
Give me a minute to share my screen. Do you all want to take 1 minute and grab some dinner?
Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess. Okay, it is 5:56 and we are about to resume. Planning Advisory Board meeting. We're going to start with the summary of the public testimony for Region 3 presented by Patrick Hughes and Desiree Williams. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank
Desiree?
you. Thanks very much. So real quickly tonight, just for the public's benefit, I want to kind of start off by going over the overall region plan timeline that you all are very familiar with at this point. Then give you all time to talk about and deliberate and ask questions on the draft region plan and the draft zoning map. And I'm going to highlight some of the key comments that were received on those, and I'll be a little bit expansive about that and try to also highlight some issues that I think you all I want to make you all aware of and get you all to weigh in on. And then we'll review the handful of new zoning requests that have been received during the comment period. And I added 2 bullet points up here, just again for the public's benefit, and we'll rehash this toward the end as well. But once we open the period on the new zoning requests, after we present those tonight, the PAB, as I understand, will take written testimony from now through Monday, December 2nd. And then oral testimony will be received at the public hearing on December 4th. And folks would need to sign up by midnight on December 2nd in order to provide oral testimony. So, as you all are aware, this is the overall PAD process and the overall adoption process. There will be additional public input and opportunities at the public hearings when this goes to county council for their review and consideration, and public should sign up for updates to be advised on the process and each stage in the process that this plan and zoning map goes through. And you can do that at the website at the bottom, aacounty.org/OPZ sign up, and you'll get a notice as we go through each stage of the process. So this process, there's been an extensive, outreach component to this process. And I know that you all have heard this before, so I won't delve too deep into, all of this. But, we did send out an initial announcement via postcard to everybody in the region, in fact, all 3 regions. There was an initial questionnaire asking folks what they liked about their area, what they find challenging, and how they spend time in the region. And we got about 127 responses to that, and then a feedback map that was a companion to that received about 134 responses. We had tailored interviews with key stakeholder groups in Region 3. We took in owner applications throughout the region throughout the October to mid-December timeframe of last year. 2 online community forums, a visioning questionnaire that went from mid-September through November. In Region 3, we got about 300, just over 300 responses to that questionnaire. And then we did have tailored topical questionnaires on draft strategies on different topics that were going to be pertinent to the region plan, and companion drop-in sessions on those. And finally, the initial draft zoning map was put out for public comment in the June to July timeframe of this past year. We also had the 10 SAC meetings that were open to the public, and we received public comment during those. And then we had some targeted outreach to different communities in the region, in particular to the Queenstown area, where we were able to really talk through some really thorny land use issues there. So we had 2 public meetings for that, plus we tabled their Queenstown Day Festival and conducted outreach there. And we also had specific outreach and presentations to other civic groups and such throughout the region. Additionally, there were legal notices that were placed in the Capital Gazette advertising this process that we're carrying out with you tonight. And then throughout all of this, we worked with the county executives, constituent services folks, and they helped drive all of these announcements out to their 50,000 plus email list through their newsletters and such. So the input that we gathered through all of this helped inform the master or the region plan and the draft zoning map that is before you now. So specific to the draft, the PAB draft of both the plan and the zoning map, we received around 200 comments through the various forms of testimony, and these 2 graphs give you a little sense of that. The majority of the comments that we received were related to the owner applications, and they did come in through the online survey that we had put out. We received also a number of phone calls and emails, and a lot of those were property owners who were just trying to understand what is it tended to be a consistency change. What is the consistency change that you're recommending on the property? So they called, and it was just an opportunity for us to explain the process, explain what this is to them, and then explain the larger region plan process and encourage them to be engaged as we move through. So with that, I'll get into some of what we heard on the draft Region 3 plan that you all are considering. We had a few general comments that applied to the region plan itself. Obviously, there are some general comments related to concerns with development, calling for no new development in the region. Some general comments about no new multifamily buildings. Also, at least one asking us not to remove any industrial or small business land uses in the region. And of course, lots of concerns with congestion. That's countywide that we're hearing that. Again, concerns with the prospect of additional development, even commercial, specifically on Marley Neck Peninsula. We had a few comments related to Marley Neck specifically. Also B&A Boulevard, and then road capacity and the impacts on road capacity in those areas. We did have some support for redevelopment in the region, particularly of underutilized sites, calling out Marley Station Mall. And the idea of redeveloping those kinds of areas before, adding new commercial areas to the region. Also support for improving the Glen Burnie Town Center. There were, comments citing the need for pedestrian connections and safety throughout the region. More access to park and public water access. Point Pleasant was specifically named in one of the comments. And we did get a comment that supported our equity considerations in the region plan. So that's it in a nutshell on what we heard with regard to the region plan. Do you all have any questions or comments before I launch into the zoning piece of this?
Thank you.
Okay. So zoning, I'm going to review a number of the zoning areas, including those that were highlighted in our zoning summary. The summary focused really on areas that got 3 or more comments. I'll be a little bit more expansive because I'm adding some that I want you all the way in on. So I'm going to start in Glen Burnie, the very top of the Glen Burnie community. This is the northern boundary of the region on Maryland 2. Right between Arundel Corporation and Jerry Lane and not there. But anyway, OPZ's recommendation had been for, there are 2 properties here. Our recommendation had been for, to support the request for C4 on the front of the property, so the western side of the 2 properties, and then to recommend C3 on the east side. That's to create a little bit of a transition to the stable residential community that you have on the east side of that, on the east side of Sterling Avenue there. We had public testimony from the owners and the owner agents that reiterated their request for all C4 on this site. And we did have one member of the public that just registered a concern in general. Of commercial in this area.
Patrick, I do have a question with that.
Okay.
And I'm familiar with the site because it's Ritchie Highway, you go right past Motor Vehicles Administration.
Yes.
And then you're starting to come down the hill. I would prefer the C4 line to be moved back, still split the zoning C4, C3 to give a buffer for the residential parcels behind it. But if you look at the C4 neighboring property, which is a hotel and I think a car lot, that C4 line should just come straight across and not zigzag.
Okay.
It still gives a buffer, but it also allows that parcel to become more size, so it's more usable. Right now, there's an old house on the property that had probably been there many years, and it's not being used, to my knowledge. Or if so, it's
Front is the law office, I believe. It's
in the house.
Yeah, in the house on the fronting Ritchie Highway. The back property, there's like an abandoned house that's just wooded.
Yeah.
And then also the properties to the south that are C4 that you're noting, there is a wall there. Just wanted to note that. So it is actually buffered from that residential community behind it too. So there is a wall there, whereas, the property in
It's the wall on Brook Terrace. Where's the wall? And coming down?
where the pink C4 is, and then where it bugs that residential yellow, there is a wall there.
Okay.
So
It's a
see, this part should come right across. Where are you at? Okay, you spun it.
I spun it. It's this part, it's locked. So is the C3 area completely wooded then? Undeveloped? There's one little house.
There's a house.
The house is a garage or
Yeah.
something.
Ish.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is this C4 should just come right across here. Leave this buffer tree here,
So that would then split zone that
Mhm.
eastern parcel.
and you're recommending split zoning as it is.
Well, it's not a split. These are 2 parcels, and so we were recommending C4 on the front parcel and C3 on the rear parcel, so each parcel would have one zoning category of each. And if I could offer a comment as the board considers the idea that Mr. Kurtz has suggested that at times where planning and zoning is considering split zoning of individual property, we're going to be concerned about making sure that each piece that remains is usable for that zone. So if that C3 became really small in the back end and wasn't usable, that doesn't to us seem to be good planning practice. And we do have, landscaping requirements in the county code.
Yeah.
You have potentially addressed the buffer.
What size, let's see, let me see what the size of that is, hold on here. Is that 1B? So 2.14 combined.
The property to the west is approximately 0.9 acres. The one in the back is the remainder of 1.1.
Discussion?
What's the advantage of split zoning it? Since there's two lots, right? You have two tax accounts, two lots.
I think the advantages would be the front parcel and the back parcel ultimately are probably going to become one in order to develop that property. Because you would have, what was the front parcel? Did you say
0.9.
0.9? To develop a 0.9 of an acre on Ritchie Highway, you're really going to need a little bit more land.
So what you're saying is the 0.9 would become C3 and the 1.2 would become C4. The way it is right now. Reverse. 0.9 would be C4, 1.2 would be C3. And the C3 is what you're thinking that should be split zone between C3 and C4. So how much would be C3 and how much would be C4 out of 1.2?
We were not recommending split zoning. That was something.
I know, that's what I'm
Something I
asking.
looked at. I just said logically, if you bring the zoning line straight across, to me, it makes more sense.
I guess the question
But-
is
I don't know what that
how much that impacts their ability to have that landscape area. In a way, it reduces their amount.
Yeah.
Of available for landscaping.
But if they join the properties, they can still develop it, part C4, part C3. Okay, Van or Lawrence, we haven't heard anything. Any questions or discussions, comments?
Can we see a visual, more of a, because I'm not really placing where this is. I'm just trying to see a visual, not just, the 3D map.
See if I can pull up.
Let's see if we
They're
can do
working
that.
on it.
All right, so here's the aerial, and I tried to I was trying to measure what you were saying, Gus. I'm not sure why I'm not getting a measurement on that, but anyway, if we zoom out, so here's 695 up here, Maryland 2, and so this is what we're talking about. There's a hotel here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so this is a pretty stable residential neighborhood here.
Mm-hmm.
That is so I believe R5, is that correct? Yeah.
And the house is on, what is that, Sterling Avenue, actually face towards that.
Towards that,
Right, these space.
so really that parcel there should be open space. Really, it's a buffer.
That's where the wall is,
Now you're
right?
talking my life.
Yeah, the
But-
wall to the south.
Ah, okay,
Okay, so the
there,
front
okay.
parcel right now. The front parcel where the house is the C.9 C4.
Correct.
In the
We're
back
recommending
parcel,
here, and we're recommending C3 for this.
Mm,
where's our C now? It's just C4.
Well, I
Drawing-
just said
drawing
the
that
neighbor, the
across.
neighboring properties.
Yeah, but drawing that across isn't gonna draw it across to make a difference, because there's a house right there in the corner.
Yeah, currently there is a split zone on the rear property between C2 and R5.
Okay, so that back
that's
part is
exactly what
R5.
Yes. It pretty much follows the split that you
Okay,
go forward.
so you're upgrading the R5 to C3 is your recommendation
Yeah, our recommendation was C3,
here and C4.
the whole rear parcel, C4, the whole front parcel.
And the reason why you didn't want it to become all C4 is the buffer between the houses.
Yes,
Okay,
But you don't have a buffer below.
there's not.
But there is.
There's a
that
wall, right?
But there's a wall.
There's a wall.
yeah, I
And
think,
lots
all right, I'd see your,
or some sort of.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think, what they're recommending makes sense, now that I see.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
Let's move
Yeah.
forward.
Okay,
Let's keep it as a,
Okay, Patrick.
Okay, moving a bit south on Furnace Branch Road, we heard from this gentleman on, at the public hearing. The owner of the indicated parcel in green. He reiterated his request for a change from C3 to C4. This is, 74, 62 and 64 East Furnace Branch Road. And I will point out, we didn't hear from this person, but there was another request to change from C3 to C4 on this corridor as well. But we didn't get to receive comment from that person, but just to bring that up. We had recommended retaining C3, and the reason was this, on this commercial corridor, yes, there are already some C4 uses, but our initial thinking was to try to maintain a slightly lower level of commercial intensity to serve the surrounding residential neighborhoods in this area and try to reserve the heavier C4 uses more for, say, Maryland 2, that kind of Ritchie Highway type of intensity, and maintain a lower level of intensity on this area. The SAC disagreed with us, and they supported they recommended supporting the C4 request for this and for the other C4 request on this corridor as well. So I want to point that out, put that out for you all.
I made a note that this currently is on 0011, it's a car lot. And is that a conforming car lot? Or why they're asking to upgrade, is that for a reason?
I believe it is not.
This is the one that had a car lot in the front and a snowball stand and,
Yeah, but we'll get to that one.
okay.
It's, it looks like it's just kind of a storage.
There's the car. Car lot, that's the, yeah. I think that's the-
Yeah, existing non-conforming use for used auto dealership.
With the house
I'm
on
sorry,
it.
does it,
There is an existing non-conforming use for the.
but it is an approved non-conforming use.
Correct.
Okay. So they don't need C4. Then I vote. keep it
Who's beside it?
Any other comments?
Jenna just asked. what
Van
the
asked
reason-
Dan, I didn't hear you, dear.
I said, what is beside it? I can't see, you can do a visual?
Here, trusted auto
To
repair.
the north, there's another little, auto storage
Mm-hmm.
in the rear. On the front, it's just a house. And then to the south, I believe it's a hotel or. Apartment complex.
Yeah, we were had a consistency change to align that residential.
For the
use.
apartment complex?
Yes, yeah, so here, I am not sharing this. Hold on.
It's a number, it's a lot of multifamily across the street from this and south of this.
Right.
And I would support
Multi-family by
C3.
10.
I think there's some R15 in there too.
Okay,
So those are the apartments surrounding.
okay.
Mhm.
So that's the property south of, just south of what we're talking about.
So so the non-conforming, I mean, it does, you know, allow for that use to continue, but my understanding is that there can be some difficulties with, you know, loans and upgrades and those kinds of things in some cases.
I
can't-
could, I could see that. There's some limitations with it. Having it.
Sure.
But it is surrounded by residential. So have to
And
keep
that was our thinking.
that in mind.
That was what we based our recommendation on, was just, there's the established stable neighborhood community. And the intent was to kind of keep the intensity a little lower here.
Mhm.
I'm okay with their recommendation.
And SAC disagreed with us, so.
If we're,
Motion to keep the C3?
we need to make that a motion.
Yeah, because there's a split on it.
Oh, okay.
SAC says C4.
I'm not sure how you all have worked this before. Do you want to go through all of the ones in the Glen Burnie community and then take a vote, or do you need to vote?
Where there's a split between SAC and OPZ, we like to do it individually.
One at a time. Okay, yes, okay.
Okay,
I think they're
so
prepared.
that's
Take a
number 10
motion.
and 11. You make that motion.
I move that GBN dash 0010 and 0011 be recommended that we hold the adopted zoning at C3, which is the recommended zoning by planning and zoning, and that the planned land use match accordingly. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, motion's been made in second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Online.
Lynn and Lawrence, I need to hear you.
Nay,
Nay, Lawrence?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have 6 ayes and 1 nay. Motion carries.
That was just for 10. to go with this.
She did 10 and 11.
You did 10.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on, this was, under application, the owner's agent spoke in the public hearing. In the Locust Road area off of Knapp's Creek Road, a lot of old, an old subdivision that I think goes back to around 1915 or so. The owner application indicates that the R5 was changed to, RLD in a prior comprehensive zoning process. I did look that up. That was in the 1980s. That they were told that they could reclaim the R5 zoning at some point later. I did not see anything in the file that indicated that necessarily. But the owner knows that there are few environmental features on the site. This is a 20-acre site. We did not get a consensus from the SAC on this site. The application notes that it is within the planned sewer service category and it's not within the critical area. But our recommended zoning is to maintain the rural low density on this. And again, this is off of Knapp's Creek Road to the east of Solly Road. I can pull up.
Does he have a CZ number on
Yeah, 015. It's
is it just RLD or is it RLD NW1?
I think that there's a sliver of, there may be a sliver of W1 at the bottom there, and that would be a consistency change to go to RLD.
I agree with
If
you.
that's the case. Does the table indicate that?
The table indicates, RLD and W one.
Okay, then.
So I don't know
it would be
where
that
W
little-
one sits at.
It would be at the bottom there, that purple color.
That purple color, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a consistency change, that's what we'll be looking at.
That line, yeah,
That line.
boundary, that's,
All right,
that's the recommendation that we're making.
Patrick, what is the plan 2040 called for there?
Neighborhood preservation.
The policy area.
In the, it's rural plan.
Rural?
What did what did the owner offer as, the history?
The owner said that this was, and I confirmed that it was changed from R5 zoning back in, I think it was 1989. Yeah, during the 1989 comprehensive zoning effort. And at that time, this applicant had requested maintaining the R5 designation. The PAB voted at that time to rezone to RLD, and it was consistent with the policy at the time to reduce density along the shoreline. And then ultimately, the Office of Planning and Zoning recommended RLD as well, because that was compatible with rural conservation and critical area designation, environmental sensitivity, and the policy of water intensity. So
Yeah.
that's the history that I was able to pull on that site.
And that property is undeveloped?
Correct. Oh, you're right.
There would be like,
Within all of that, I'm sorry.
I
There's
recommend
some-
keeping it RLD.
Some housing? Okay,
Some
make a motion?
I make a motion.
Any,
oh, no.
Okay.
Can you
Ian
give
and Lawrence, any
me a
questions?
visual? Can you give me a visual of it?
Let me. So here's the site. Let me scroll out just a bit. So we have Solly Road here, getting up into the Tanyard area up here, and then Brandon Woods Industrial Park starting here. So go down Naps Creek Road a bit. And the site is in here, and you see these three houses that exist within the area here.
Mhm.
And the adopted zoning as it is now, so there's a lot of open space zoning on county properties surrounding
Mhm.
RLD, surrounding that, and then our industrial areas along Solly Road.
Mhm.
I motion that.
Hold on.
Oh,
Van, any questions? And Lawrence, I haven't heard anything.
Sorry, we're just,
Uh, I think Elizabeth is ready to vote.
I'm trying to move us along, sorry.
I guess, I just want to know what the intentions are of the owner. I mean, if they asking for R5, is, what are they hoping to do? Obviously, they're asking for it for a reason, right?
They were actually looking, there was somebody looking to buy the property at one point and was talking about a park, remember? And so then we discussed whether to change the zoning at that point, so there was a question of whether they were gonna sell the property and do something completely different with it, or keep the property and try to redevelop it as housing. I think housing was the original intent, but then they were also considering whether to sell. And then that owner was considering some sort of recreational.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But, yeah, I do think either way, I mean, whatever zoning is applied, it does open the potential for any other use within that zoning category to be.
Okay.
At a future date.
All right. I'm good with.
All right, you ready?
Elizabeth,
Okay.
yeah.
let's go.
Okay, I make a motion that CZRP GBN 0015 be recommended for RLD zoning and that the planned land use map accordingly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made in second. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Lawrence? Aye. Okay, any nays? No nays, motion carries. 7 ayes. Okay, I'd like to look at the next one. There's not a difference on there, but just, I had a note here, 17, GVN 17.
Okay. On your screen.
Oh, yeah.
On your slide. It's on your next slide. Oh, that was it? Yeah. Oh, it is that. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna talk about this. So this one, we may want to, we have a new zoning application that is coming for the property immediately to the south of this. We may want to talk about them a little bit in conjunction, but just in a nutshell here, the adopted zoning is split on the subject property there, C3, C4. The owner request was C4. We had recommended C3 zoning, and that was that had to do with the town center development policy area. It is within the town center, and again, to not expand that C4 zoning within the town center itself. We may want to relook at that, or I want to make you all, I guess, aware. We have a request from the parcel to the south, and we'll get deeper into it, for the same owner that owns the C4 property to the south also owns the property to the rear, and they are requesting C4 for a portion of that rear property. The portions that we have in orange there that we have as a consistency change, they're requesting C4 for that portion as well. Should we skip ahead and talk
Well,
about
let me
that,
ask you a
or-
question. So we have a new request coming in for the neighboring property.
And it may impact how we think about this one.
Okay, so what I'd like someone from the board to do is make a motion to postpone that so we can look at all the parcels
Okay.
at one time, because there's a lot of moving pieces there.
so moved.
Okay,
Second,
motion's been made to table GBN 0017 till to further when we review the new application that came in for the neighboring property. All in favor? Aye. Aye, Van?
Aye.
Gee, okay, great. Any nays? Motion carries. All right.
This property, there are two that I'll talk about together, GBN 0005 and then 0023. They're neighboring parcels on Solly Road, just across from Brandon Woods Industrial Park. The owner of GBN 0005 originally requested W1, and then through their comments, they're amending their request to request C4 on that property. So that's the one on the south side. On the northern side is 0023, and the owner is has commented, reiterating his request for C4. So when we considered these with the SAC, OPZ had recommended W1 on both of these. The SAC supported W2 for the one to the south, and then just in conversations, really, they weren't able to reach consensus on the one to the north. Yeah, and both owners have come in and they've kind of reiterated and amended their request, requesting C4 for both of these. So on the top one, 0023, there's a little bit, there's some complication, a backstory on that, let me see, the property had been the subject of an approved non-conforming use that allowed for a contractor's establishment, and then it was the subject of an after-the-fact special exception and variance request that was associated with an unpermitted expansion of the non-conforming use. So this is on the northern of the two. The special exception was approved at the Board of Appeals, but the variance was a setback variance was not approved. And so the illegal structure remains in place, and it's a structure that's made for shipping containers. There's a pending legal action with that. So our thinking was that the existing W1 zoning seems more consistent with the zoning in the immediate area. And then considering what's coming in, there's a recommendation for mixed use residential on the large parcel to the north. And then we have a townhome development immediately to the south of that.
To the north, that little sliver and the rest of that portion to the north is what right now? That little,
The record,
that little, I don't know what that is right there.
Yeah.
I know it's all forest going all the way up there. but-
All this is W1, I believe.
yeah.
Is that
and
CSX property?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So
And
that's
then
all,
and the recommendation though is for mixed use residential. That was a request for that property and we supported that.
And that parcel is, what is the acreage on that parcel?
The large one?
Yes.
or
0.6,
80s, give me a second, 96 acres.
96 acres.
on the other side of Tanya, okay.
All right, so I'll start off with comment on this. I'm familiar with the property because some of my family goes to Solly Methodist Church, which is right down the street. And Solly Church has been there, I guess 100 years. And this property has been used as a contractor's yard for at least 50 years, if not over, as the owner testified when he came in and spoke. The problem that he has with the W zoning is it's a 0.6 of an acre. When you get the W zoning and you get 40-foot setbacks and your property is only 75 feet wide, it basically allows you to do nothing. So he needs C4 zoning, one, to be not non-conforming, and then two, if he would want to develop anything with that, it's a small parcel. He has to have C4 in order to even do anything with the property. So that's my comment. Any other board comments?
why did OPC recommend W1? Because it's retaining and it is consistent with the other side. So how would W1 on that parcel affect or impact the rezoning mixed use of the CSX property, 90 acres on the other side? You understand what I'm saying?
I think so. I mean, we recommended W1 because we were looking at what's surrounding these, assuming that it's mixed use residential development that's gonna come in on the CSX properties to the north. And then we have the existing townhome development to the south. It felt like the W1 was more compatible in terms of intensity than potentially what could be done with the C4 use on these properties or the range of uses.
However,
Size of the property limited to.
However, if it remains W1, it remains non-conforming.
Right.
It seems to me that C4 would be a better service to such a developed area with townhomes and intensity.
I
residentially.
would also note that under public comments, there was nobody that protested the request of C4. And I would say if the Solly church members, who many of them are Solly family, if they didn't want that construction yard there, it's been there for over 50 years, they would have been at every meeting and would have written 100+ letters. So
I made a comment here that we wanted to see if it happened. We didn't have any submission on this?
I have a list here. It wasn't anything that was in opposition.
Yeah.
Van or Lawrence, any comments?
No.
Motion to change zoning, you wanna, want me to motion, or you want, are we in agreement? For
What, Van?
For C4?
Yes,
Okay, I motion zoning number GBN 0005 and GBN 0023 be recommended for C4 zoning, and that the planned land use match accordingly.
Second,
A vote, motion's been made in second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Moving on, still in Marley Neck, but over on Marley Neck Boulevard. I'll talk about this and then a little bit further down as well. We had a bunch of consistency changes on Marley Neck where we were aligning the zoning and the planned land use with the built condition in some of these tenured developments. We had a request from the representative of the owner to maintain the existing zoning and delete the recommended consistency changes in this area. So there's this area that's to the north near Fort Smallwood Road. And do I need to pause?
no,
Go ahead.
good.
All right.
Where the ice
And
cream comes.
That's fine. And then a bit further to the south on Marley Neck Boulevard as well, there's similar requests for, so tenured code south and then tenured code north. So the request is to maintain the existing zoning, having to do with parts of the development are still under development, under review, under the existing zoning. So they're just requesting to maintain the existing zoning while this is in process.
second,
Okay, make a motion.
we don't have the numbers.
It's a slew of them. It's
Okay.
dozens and dozens and dozens. We have that list.
Okay, so I make a motion that we recommend, PAB recommends keeping the current zoning regarding the Marley Neck area
And the Strasburg County suggests that you specifically mentioned the tenured shores development.
and the tenured shore development, noting that there is development in the system under review, that we keep the current zoning, as the zoning as is currently. The plan land use match accordingly.
Yeah.
Keep the current zoning current.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
His
Elizabeth,
eye.
did you, I mean, Jesse, did you get that?
That I have
Michael, you have it?
one
question?
clarification to include the planned land use. Do you guys have any thoughts, comments, questions on planned land use? Do you want to start the board?
The planned land use would need to be realigned then with the adopted zoning.
I'm Robin.
Okay. Was there any other season? Okay, here we go. 400.
So we had a few comments. This is just north of Georgia Avenue, just north of the Glen Burnie Town Center area. Let's see, GDN 400, 401. The Crane Highway, Maryland 2 is over here. These are on Crane Highway, again, just north of Georgia Avenue. The owner and the agent reiterated the request for C4 on these two properties. If you remember, the northern one there, 40401, is I think it's Mallory Carpet. The map that is before you, that's online, we neglected to include within the change request geometry the rear portion of that. So I'm showing it here on the slide here. That was actually a part of the request So for all of that to be, C4. And again, so the owner wrote in to note that correction and then to reiterate the request for, C4 on these. Yeah, and we had recommended C3, partly because, DBN 400 is an existing, historic resource contributing to a local historic district there.
Well, it's been C3 since 2005, at least.
Yeah.
So he obviously has been doing just fine as the C3 since 2005. Where is he?
Quite
Trying to
understand.
find it on the
Hold
Google.
on, give it, trying to look at it from the
I'm in,
Google
I'm in
map
south, not
perspective.
north.
You may pull up the.
If you could just show it,
There
I'm trying to orient myself here.
It's this part. So the neighboring parcel, you guys probably aren't familiar, because I'm a car guy and I know all of them. But there was a car dealership that's next to this, we called Ernie Swanson. And, he had, Pontiac, Oldsmobile.
Is it this?
Yes, both of those, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the subject of the C4 request, and the property extends way back and then
All the way
behind
back, right?
this.
Right, but what's,
So that's 401 and 402 is next to it.
Yeah,
It's
402 is to the south. This is the historic structure that's also the subject of the C4 request.
but there's one.
Hmm.
Homes in the back.
Yeah, there
There are homes in back, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so here are two
Right, and then
properties here. And
And
yeah,
now-
so these are residences.
just arrow out the area we're talking about right now. Just take a little arrow and if you can draw the little,
So this is actually, I think
it's further up, right? Yeah. What I thought. Okay. And I don't,
this would be the.
That's what I'm saying. Keep it C3, been C3 for
Yeah.
more than 20 years. Okay.
sounds like we need to make a motion. Yes,
Just
got it?
need the numbers back.
Patrick, if you could share the competition. Should be in 400.
is it 400? So we're making a motion for.
400 and 401.
For GBN 0400 and GBN 4040. That it remains? No.
0401.
400,
400 and 401.
I said GBN 0401. Right, the recommendation is to remain C3, am I correct? Or-
Correct.
Okay,
Second.
A motion's been made for 400 and 401 to remain C3. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
I mentioned this one briefly to you. This is also, this is on North Shore Drive. It's kind of off of, Solly Road. We had received this application during the preliminary draft stage. And then the owner promptly sold it to a new owner who has asked to rescind this, the zoning change application. And so now the issue is that the owner wants to retain the existing zoning, which is RLD for the large portion of this property, and then R2 on the separate, it looks like a separate lot on this area. So where you see consistency change, GBN 4236 Essentially, he would request that we not make that consistency change and remain the R2 zoning, which is to retain the existing zoning split on this property.
How big is the R2 piece?
Let's see,
Because we don't have that
it's
on
essentially
our,
the size of the adjacent R2 property, but
the whole thing is 11.28 acres.
yeah, right.
So,
And the bulk of it would remain RLD. We do what he's asking. Yeah, just the yellow.
So it's just basically leaving zoning as
right,
RLD and R2.
yeah, but why don't we change it all to RL?
As you're looking at it, it's worth noting as well, this property is on the water there in the critical area. We saw within the RCA critical area. Thank you, yeah, that is important. The western tip of the property is not, but the vast majority of it is RCA right here.
What did you say about that little sliver piece? We wanted to do what with that little?
So the planning and zoning is recommending a consistency change to make the entire parcel RLD.
RLD.
Currently, that little sliver is R2.
Yeah, so this is the current zoning on the property. So you see, most of it is already RLD. The new owner wants to retain all of that, but he also wants to retain this R2 piece in order to build a house on here, and that's kind of in line with the other existing R2 properties that are further down.
However, you're only drawing the line. I mean, there is R2, both on both sides,
Sides.
so that could be RLD. Yeah. Which would be drawing the line straight across.
Did you say how many acres, or what the size of that was?
It's about 0.9. What's the
That little sliver?
residual in R2? Thank you, because I can't get it to show here.
It's a two separate parcels.
No,
One
it's
part,
part.
so it would have to go through subdivision to create a buildable lot.
No, because they're currently, it's current split zone. So what they're asking for is to keep it currently split zone. What I'm saying is recommended all for RLD.
That's what OPZ
And
says.
that was our initial consistency recommendation. That's what's in the map that came for you all.
I can support that.
Any other discussions?
Nope.
Okay, make a motion, somebody.
I make a motion that CZ R3 GBN 0402 be RLD as OPZ recommended, and that the planned land use map accordingly.
Second.
Okay, Edward seconds, motion's been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Oh, I had it not sharing, sorry. Sorry, I thought I was already sharing.
Is that it for Glen Burnie?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay, so now,
It's at Millersville.
can we do that?
Let's see, I can take the next. So before we, Chair, before we move forward with, our next motion, I have an additional motion to make if that's okay with you. I'd like to make a motion prior to the recommendation of our approval of Region 3 and the Glen Burnie, Severn, and Millersville communities, that the Planning Advisory Board does not support any consistency changes that diminish the quantity of open space zoning in any community unless we have discussed the specific parcel and decided otherwise. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, make motion,
I have some changes to go through in Millersville and
Okay,
Severn
I
as
retract
well.
I retract
To Glen Burnie.
just Glen Burnie. I retract Severn and Millersville.
Okay,
All right, so I second that.
okay. Did you get that, Michael, Justin?
Ms. Harder gave us motion to state that the motion that the PAB does not support any consistency changes that reduce the amount of OS zoning. Is that it?
That's correct.
Wait a minute, I got a question. Is this did you just come up with that, or is this something that we decided that it was on our
I
agenda?
just put the motion out and then she's just documenting what the motion is and then it'll be up for discussion. I just put the motion out there.
So yes, it reads, Ms. Harder gave us motion that the PAB does not support any consistency changes that reduce the amount of OS zoning unless it has been discussed by the PAB.
So right
Okay.
now, we're just having Glen Burnie,
I can add
Well,
that.
and we haven't discussed any
Open space.
Open space.
open space
Consistency
for Glen
changes.
Burnie, so we're saying that any. Sorry, are we in discussion now? Okay.
Discuss it before we vote on it, yes.
Okay, we're in discussion that, since we haven't discussed any, then any of the consistency changes, which are usually before us,
The big binder.
are the big banners, and how many are open space
You have that.
consistency changes for Glen Burnie?
200, was it?
There's 200 pages of consistency changes. I do not know how many are open space specifically for Region 3 altogether.
I can say for Region 3, based on the PAB map that's before you all, there was an increase in open space zoning of 498 acres, almost 500 acres. I don't know that I can speak off the top of my head about any
Right,
individual or how some things would change based on our conversations so far.
right. And my motion specifically addresses any reduction of any due to consistency changes. So,
Okay.
but thank you for the
Without
detail
the
about,
review of the PAB.
unless we reviewed it and we've decided that we agree with it. That's correct.
So reductions, we
Reduction.
want to increase, we don't want to reduce, so. Reductions would be the only one that would be,
That's correct.
Any discussions?
And this is for Severn, my area?
Glen
no,
Burnie.
Glen Burnie.
Right now, we're on.
Oh, okay,
This is Glen Burnie, Van.
okay, making sure.
Okay. All right, no other conversations, discussions? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Hey, Van, Severn's our area, by the way. That's us, baby. That's us.
That's us, okay, I'm glad we're on the same page.
That's us.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are in the Millersville.
No, we have to do something else.
You have to do Glen Burnie.
I move to recommend approval of the development policy area and the development policy area overlay changes, the planned land use changes, and the comprehensive zoning for Glen Burnie as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. A motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, Patrick, Millersville.
Getting into Millersville, all right. I have two slides, two things to point out, and of course, any that you all might bring up. Along Elverton Road, we had 4 requests along Elverton Road, MRV 0002 through 0005. The adopted zoning is R1 or R2 for those. The owners of these 4, they all requested R5. OPZ recommended maintaining the existing zoning of either R1 or R2 as is currently adopted. But the SAC supported the R5 requests on Elverton Road here. So that was our we did get public testimony, just not as much as I had really expected and hoped for, if I'm honest. Because we did have the two owners and their agents that reiterated their support for the R5 request. And we did have two residents that expressed opposition to uploading on Elberton. And that's it. So I would have thought we could get a little bit more interaction one way or the other along Elberton Road, because I think it's a.
Michael, do we have any physical address that we can use to pull up something in that area?
Yes.
8300 Virginia University.
So I'll read another,
Shorter one is 302
I'm gonna read another comment. Retaining R2 is consistent with the adopted Plan 2040 plan land use and density. R2 provides a good transition between R5 density to the west and R1 density to the east.
So here's Route 2 over here. We have Elberton Road here. The requests are in this area.
But it's already R2.
Yeah, so
No, I think it's just that.
Stay on two?
One of
Yeah.
the four is already R2 and the other three are R1. The one that is R2 is part of a PUD. Yeah, so and it's already, there's nothing on it, it's already been created.
I motion CC R3 MRV 002 through 005 be recommended for the zoning that OPZ has recommended and that the planned land use match accordingly.
Second,
A clarification, the OPZ recommendation was different on those
On
parcels.
those parcels.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It ranges
it
from,
ranges
to
from
remain
R2 to
existing
R1, you're
code.
saying make it all R2
no, I'm
and not
saying,
R5.
She's saying follow the
I'm saying
recommendation.
follow what OPZ
of the
recommended,
OPZ.
R2, R1, and
Okay.
R1.
Okay, motion's been made, did I hear a second?
yes,
Second. Okay, motion's been made to follow the OPZ recommended zoning on 0002 through 5. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
and then further south in Millersville, this windy road that you see at the bottom there is Dykus Mill Road. There was one request, MRV 0007. The adopted zoning on this parcel is RLD. The owner had requested C4 on that property. We in the SAC recommended RLD. There were 61 comments in support of obtaining RLD in this, of this property.
Can you pull it up on the map so I can see it?
Sure.
I just want to see where it is in comparison on Dykus Mill to,
It's
There's
just,
a tremendous amount of comments, all in support of keeping it all out there.
mhm.
And the SAC and the, how are we doing this?
all right, so here we have Dykus Mill coming off of, 97, so zoom in a bit, it's this property here. To the west is the neighborhood Aurora Hills, if you're familiar.
Yes, uh-huh,
Then just to the east is the Severn Run natural area.
right. And Gambril's, where the post office is how far from that? To 175?
Over to the west. I think all the way over here.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
So
Okay.
So the SAC and OPZ agree, so we really don't need any motions. Okay. Moving forward,
okay, so that's all of Millersville that I have, unless you all have additional questions on anything specific to Millersville. We do have, want to get into with the new.
Anything else I can make a motion?
Okay, is there any other comments on Millersville? Ready for a motion?
Yep.
Okay,
I move that the planning advisory board does not support any consistency changes that diminish the quantity of open space zoning in the Millersville community unless we have discussed the specific parcel and decided again, otherwise.
Second.
motion's been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Lawrence is an aye.
Okay, motion carries.
We good.
Okay, you need the next one.
And then I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, planned land use changes and comprehensive zoning for Millersville as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, motion's been made in second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays?
Mr. Griffin, one thing about taking a 5-minute break before we get to Severn.
Yep, okay. So our next and final community is Severn. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Okay. I'm gonna start you all over on the telegraph.
Okay, give me 1 minute. It is, are we on? It's 7:16 and this is the Planning Advisory Board meeting on November 20th. We will continue our discussions and deliberations on specifically Region 3, Severn Community Area. Patrick and Desiree, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just jumping in.
I didn't do it.
So this is the Telegraph Road area. Just for context, it's just south of Route 100 and north of Reese Road. I have 2 slides on this, and I'll start here though. We had one request, SVN 0002, that's outlined in front of you, and we did get some comments. The owner agent for this reiterated the request for R10 on this, noting that that request would support additional housing in the Severn area, and gave a little bit of a little detail, noting that the R5 zone requires 10 acres in order to be able to build townhomes, and that this site is less than 10 acres. And then also notes that the site is inappropriate for single family use, and that with development costs, including a required sewer connection, would mean that more units would be needed to make a potential project on this site economically feasible. We did get a few public comments that were in opposition to development of this site at all, and the loss of green space, or to any increase in density along this corridor. And a lot of those comments were couched in opposition due to the potential impact on traffic congestion. I will say on this one specifically, the SAC supported the R10 request, and they noted that there's a similar R10 development and community immediately across Telegraph Road. So they felt like it was a request that would be, compatible in this area. I'm gonna branch out just a little bit and just talk a little bit about the whole Telegraph Road area. We had recommended a number of, you'll tell me to pause if I need to. I can.
Okay, yeah, all right, go ahead.
I'm okay. I'm not calling you all out. If you need me to stop.
No.
No, I'm just
No, no.
not.
Our minds are just working too fast.
The change recommendations, yeah. So what's going on is, the neighborhood to the north here, this is Munson Heights. That is a recommendation to change from R1 to R2. That's to align with the building condition. To align with the build condition. Let's see, elsewhere, there's one exception on this site, and it's these two parcels in the very bottom of Munson Heights, yeah, those two. Those are a little bit larger and therefore, we did have one of those property owners that wrote not during this public comment period, but during the preliminary draft period, and they had requested retaining their existing R1 designation, but otherwise, we were recommending for the whole neighborhood to go to R2.
Why is
including
that
those
still
two.
our
We
two?
were recommending that those two also go to R2, just for consistency with the whole neighborhood.
Even though they wrote in and said they wanted to
Not
remain,
during this period, but yes, during the preliminary draft period, yeah. So that we don't have one island of R1 property there. So
what's in the middle there? What's that green? Is that really blue? Yeah, what's that?
that's the, so I've got a transparency on our recommended zoning. So there's some OS zoning that runs through this property. It is there are some environmental constraints on that 0002 site right there. Yeah. And then further to the south, we had recommended some upzoning to R5 along the corridor. So this is Minnetonka Road, leading to the west here. And then further to the west here, there are a few properties. This is the Severn Elementary School. And then, so there are really 3 properties here that we were recommending upzoning from R1 to R2. And that's consistent with the adopted zoning of most of Minnetonka to the west. So the thinking in this area is that this allows for a little bit of additional potential housing between the Route 100 corridor and then we have a designated village center, the Severn Village Center at the Reed Road intersection down here, and that's from Plan 2040. So being between those areas and given that there's some more intensive development that's come across the street on the east side of Telegraph Road, the proximity to the park, the proximity to Severn Elementary, it seemed like this was a good candidate for some additional upzoning. Again, we are hearing some concern from folks about the impact, the potential for impacts on traffic in this area. I will note that SJ is working through a design to add a lane in each direction on this roadway, and we've been in touch with them and talking to them about the potential for upzoning and
Is that extra lanes?
Can you tell me where that extra lane they're
That's what I was
consider?
gonna ask. Is that 170?
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
where you're looking? Okay.
Yeah, so it would be along 170, and I believe that additional lane begins south of Reed's Road and then go up to Route 100. That was still in early design stages, and also bike lanes, I believe, which is what they had shown at a public input session that they had several weeks.
Can I see the map visual for it?
Yeah. Bear with me 1 second while I get there. I'm gonna give you Google Maps so that we can do street view if that's.
That's fine. I know, I pretty much know where it is, but I gotta say that this is I don't know how they would do another lane, but that area in particular is horrible as far as traffic. Like, there's consistently accidents on, for people coming off of 100, coming onto Telegraph Road, people leaving, Fort Meade to come up Reese Road to get on the Beltway, other ways because it's congested in several different places. And because of the additional townhomes and apartments on 170, right there where 100 is.
Up here.
Yes.
Yep.
That in addition, if you come further up Telegraph or coming down, I guess, there's where that McDonald's is and Reese Road, there's now townhomes over there.
Mm-hmm.
Right here.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're building even more right along Reese as well. So townhomes coming out into a business corridor
Right
to,
here.
yeah, to across from the post office where it's already traffic backups in the morning, afternoon, and evening. I don't see how they can do an extra lane on either side because there's existing homes that I guess you would be taking their land. But
You really can't, to your point, see that, right? You really don't have any space to do an extra lane, really.
Well, these are there were preliminary designs that did show, you know, the additional lane and bike lane through this area. Now, again, it's still in design, it's not, you know, shovel ready at all.
yeah, I guess putting an extra lane in to what point? Because that 170 goes all the way up to 32. So it runs between 32 and 100, right? So if you're putting an extra lane, it's just like normal
32.
that 170, when you look at that stretch between Route 32 and 100 is consistently backed up. I mean, it's just been so many accidents there along that whole stretch because people are trying to get out from work, go get to work, and they're trying to figure out different pathways to do so, which backs it up from Fort Meade and then also NSA and then, just other jobs and people trying to get to their destinations. So I don't know. I just think that that's already congested area to not.
I'm with you, Van. I would challenge anybody to come off 100 on that Telegraph Road from 2:30 to 6. I would say you're sitting there and good luck.
And if you
Today.
if you're looking at the green areas, there's not much of it.
No.
Well, and I think what you're both saying, it does track with a lot of the public comments that we did get. The folks that we heard from in Munson Heights, correct me if you think I'm wrong, Desiree, because I know you spoke to some folks too, but the folks that I talked to, they weren't as concerned about the realigning, Munson Heights with the built condition.
Mhm.
But all of them immediately went to talking about the traffic congestion, how difficult it is to turn out of their neighborhood.
They will
There's
sit there forever.
concern on Minnetonka. We did get some written testimony as well from folks who live in this neighborhood as well about a proposed development it's already in review under the current zoning back in this area. So, we had recommended R2 for this as well, but I think some of the comments received were on the development proposal that's already, in the pipeline, so, or under review.
What's it currently zoned?
I'm sorry. Yes, where
That's current, I'm sorry, which one was that?
it's currently zoned, this is currently zoned R1, this is zoned R1 as well. We had recommended R2 through there. Let me pull up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just. Well, the state will take 10 years to fix the roads, so back in 10 years and try again.
Well, on the other side of that Telegraph, there's this new apartment development to the east of Telegraph. I don't know
Is this what you're talking
that.
about
Yeah,
here?
correct.
I don't recall the name of it.
I don't know. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right.
Can we take these apart a couple, please? Because you were originally on 0002.
Yeah, so. Bear with me. So this was a zoning change application, again, requesting R10. We had recommended R5, the SAC supported the request for R10, noting that they felt like that was compatible with at least the existing development across the street.
But just note that it's currently OS
Yeah, what's on the bottom
and
there?
R1.
R1.
Right, it's R1, correct.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we keep it R1 and not change it, not change it at all.
So the OPZ recommendation was to propose a bit above zoning to R5 on this corridor, noting the proximity to both the Route 100 corridor, noting that SHA is planning an upgrade to Telegraph Road here. It's proximate to the village center, the designated village center to the south, which is where the McDonald's and Carlson's Donuts is and all of that. The park, the school, it seemed like a good area for a little bit more intensity, but in our mind, we felt like going to R10 was a little much. But the applicant knows that there's some concerns or constraints with not having R10 on the site. And then.
So Patrick, just to clarify OPC's recommendation, on that parcel, which is 6.39 acres,
It's R5.
It's R5.
your recommendation R5 and disregard the current open spaces or change the open space also to R5.
The whole site is recommended for R5, yeah. I've got a transparency on here, that's why the open space is showing up.
But FHD
But
and
yeah.
OPC do not share the same views.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. then. Given that it is 6.39, because it's less than 10, only, okay, but if it were to become an R5, then it could be townhouses based on 6.39 acres.
It has to be R10.
It has to be R10 to do
It has to
that.
be R10 in
Yeah.
order to do that because it's less than 10 acres.
Am I that correct?
Am I right?
For a zoning expert, there, from the condition for R5 and happens to be a 10 acre minimum site.
For R5, but R5, they could do townhomes?
They cannot.
Okay, so,
Have to be single family.
Correct.
it would have to be single families, but given, oh, that's under 9, that doesn't apply. Okay, sorry, talking out loud. Because it's under 9, 72 doesn't apply.
This is one of those key areas I want to do all the.
Did you say what the open space size is? Or is that radio?
I would say the open space is probably amplified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but it does look to be about half of the site. It's pretty constrained.
Well, remember that open space zoning is not representing environmental.
But the environmental constraints remain and
Yeah.
floodplain requirements.
What's our one?
Are you asking that? Like what part is R1 and what part is OS?
How much?
We've got a bit of it. This is the existing zoning here, so R1 is. Sorry. So this is the existing zoning and you see the open spaces. More or less the northern half of the site or perhaps more than R1.
I would keep it the same. Yeah, I want. What am I saying
You make the
here? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, does Van or Lawrence have any comments? Because we haven't heard you comment on this.
Oh, I did. I was talking about it in the beginning. I'm just saying that, I don't think it should be, I think it should stay as it is. I don't think it should be, I don't think we need any more.
I'm in
So
agreement.
that's the consensus here. Why don't you make a motion, Van?
Okay. A motion, let me pull it up. You can change
It's SVN 0002.
SVN 002, be recommended for, I need to see the zoning up so that I can,
Maintain
Maintain
current zoning.
maintain the current zoning and that the planned land use match accordingly.
Second,
Okay, motion's been made in second for 0002 to maintain the current OS and R1 zoning. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
and now we need to go back to what you have.
Yeah, let me talk to this, cause just for a second, cause I think you all are gonna wanna unpack a couple of things here, all of it, you know, what's dumping out onto Telegraph Road and such, so. And y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I think Munson Heights is one category and we've recommended R2. For that basically aligns with, the existing built condition there. But that, and we anticipate that's a stable neighborhood, probably gonna be there in 20 years. All of this area here is, you can see the adopted, there's some OS zoning that cuts through, to the rear here. So all of this is currently R1 and all of, let's see, these three properties here are R1 and then Severn Elementary School here is R1. We had recommended going to R5 here, and this portion over here, we recommended for R2, correct? Yeah. Yep.
Without application?
Those
Just-
were,
just
right, those were
OPC.
staff recommended changes, in order to help address the housing issues. And we felt like this was an area to put a little bit of additional housing. It's not gonna get you a whole lot, it's not gonna solve the county's issues, but it is proximate to the Route 100 corridor, to the designated Plan 2040 Village Center down here. We have the park, we have the elementary school, and there are planned upgrades to the roadway.
So how do you, where is that on our sheet?
So those are,
SBN 0124.
1, 2,
0111. So there's a bunch.
it's primarily 0103 is this large one here.
0, 1, 0.
That's kind of the big one on Telegraph.
So that's
It
40.
encompasses-
41 acres. But it goes, you said it's gonna go through 0103 to what?
Hold on,
It's on the-
It's here.
Do you see it's on the top of the page?
Yeah, it's on the top of
I got you.
page 17.
Yep, I got you.
Oh, you're online.
Yeah, so on this slide, I kind of highlighted the kind of the big ticket, you know, change numbers here that were staff recommended changes. So this 0111, that's the subject of a development proposal that's already in review currently. That area is currently R1. These various changes down here are R1 or in this case OS on this side. And we had recommended R2 here. And then this large one here, which is, what is that?
That's R1, right?
0103.
Yeah, okay, so that's kind of the big ticket one on, excuse me, recommended to go to R5.
And that wants to go to R5.
0103, yeah.
I don't wanna change it. I'm just letting you know. Van?
I don't want to change it either.
All right. Well, I say leave it.
And the
Okay.
biggest problem is not that we don't support affordable housing.
Correct. That is not
The
the
problem is that the road
Correct.
Where to put it.
currently.
That is
can't
not where
handle-
it
can't
cannot.
handle
In its current state, it can't.
In the current state.
And we're specifically talking about
Those.
0103,
Correct.
keeping it R1. So I move, or do you want to move? Your area.
So, I motion to SBN 012101.
No, I think we're gonna take them one at a time.
One at a time, so we're just doing 03 right now?
Yeah,
All right.
0103.
0103. Remain the same.
R1.
R1.
And that the planned land
Hold on.
use.
Yep, and that the plan land use match accordingly. Want to make sure I'm right. Yeah.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second on 0103 to remain R1. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Now,
Do you all want to address
yes,
this change from R1 to R2? And then this change, just means 0111 from R1 to
Yes.
R2.
yes.
0111 is open space,
It's OS right now,
OS right now.
right? 15 acres of OS right now.
Which one are you talking about?
0111.
111.
I recommend CZ R3 SBN 0111 remain open space.
Second that.
Okay, motion,
That one is not all open space currently.
It's currently zoned on our sheet as OS.
is our sheet incorrect?
It's primarily R1 with portions of OS.
Then I need to,
So there may be an issue in the.
Can you do an overlay
Yeah,
of the OS on it?
yeah, please.
They table that motion.
Table that motion.
Okay, so this is the parcel here.
Oh, that's not what we have.
So there's an error in the table as it is now.
Yeah, it says OS.
It's all OS.
And do you have any idea of how many acres that sliver is right there? That's R1?
Entire property is approximately 15 acres.
That right there.
The red triangle.
0111.
The pizza
The
that you
pizza
just
pizza.
ate.
That was veggie, by the way, so you know where I'm going. So you know where I'm going with this. Yeah, I like pizza. So you know where I'm going with this, right? It's a veggie pizza, right? Yeah.
A rough estimate of the open space zone, OS zone would be about 1.5 acres. Out of the 15, approximately. About 12 plus acres of the existing R1.
Oh, that's a big difference.
Right. Isn't
That
that
is a big difference.
So do we want to just leave it the way it is?
so
Yes.
that currently is R1. What you're showing me
The
right now.
hand, yes.
Okay. Right, with a little,
I make a motion, CZ R3 SBN 0111 remains its current zoning.
second.
The motion's been made and second for 0111. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Please. Motion carries.
Can I ask a clarifying question on some of these? It seems like the board is leaning towards keeping these slivers of OS that are the backside of the property.
For the most part, yeah.
And then, we've discussed this multiple times that, OPZ, moved away from that with by 2040 and the way that we designate land use. And we're supposed to carry that through with the region plans and the comprehensive zoning. That are environmental regulations.
I can't hear you. Can you say, I can't hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm just for clarification, make sure I understand what the board, this is Mike Stringer. For clarification, to make sure I understand what the board is proposing, that your suggestion that would be that for these small pieces of OS in the backside of the properties, that they be retained in OS zoning. Would the recommendation then be that the planned land use also align that go to conservation planned land use to be consistent? Just because
That's correct.
Oh, that's fine.
Well,
It's not conserved.
Not conservation, no.
right,
Open space.
open space.
Development as we.
It still is available.
Well, no, I mean, no,
It's
it comes in to
calculated
be
in.
developed, that area will be set aside. Probably more than that. Or not, I mean, it's, that line is not following, it's an arbitrary line. And that's through the floodplain. Floodplain line, that OS.
Floodplain
The
line
flood-
is what dictates.
That's where we had some find our, why, with plan 2040, we don't forgot this. Are away from arbitrary.
We understand.
This gets to what you were talking about, Cindy, the floodplain
See it.
and how it's not aligned with the current website.
Patrick, can you dig more into the pizza shape parcel, how much floodplain is actually on that?
No, no,
No,
there's some, it's a little bit.
and this is again, the 2015 FEMA floodplain. I think that, when Plan 2040 and the SACs were working on their recommendations, that Bill 7224 was not in play, and I have heard about guardrails and about the environmental features being protected, but the density of, I think what people really, what I am really speaking to, speak for myself, is that the maximum density of impervious surface with 7224 in play takes R1 and R2 from a current 25% impervious surface to 50% impervious surface. R5 from 40% impervious surface to 65% impervious surface. R10 from 40 to 75% allowed impervious surface. Same for R15 and R22. They move from 45% to 75% impervious surface. And the environmental regulations, I have seen it, I have watched it, I have lived it. They don't necessarily get followed. I've seen regulators turn their heads. I have seen our own stormwater management regulations that just don't, when a forest is cleared off a lot and they may meet our current regulations and the roof square footage is captured and put into rain barrels or put into a rain garden, but it doesn't make up for the natural features on that site that then runs down the hill and onto their adjacent neighbor. So,
I guess I agree to a certain extent. I will tell you that I think you should look in other areas where there's plenty of land. When there's a particular area that is already overbuilt and you have congestion problems and traffic and accidents and loss of life. I mean, there was a little boy that was maybe 2 or 3 years old that ran out into the road and was hit and was killed. And then there was another accident. I mean, there's several living in this area you hear about. And so this particular area and this particular property, I would say it makes sense to leave this alone. And it makes sense to maybe look other areas where there's more opportunity than this particular area.
They noted,
Well, give us the road space first, and then let's talk about everything else after that.
okay, getting back to our motion. Okay, what it was. We did that, we did 111.
We did 1013, 0103.
we haven't done 0121. Which one is that one again?
I don't think we did 111, did we? Am I missing it?
We did 111 because we
Okay.
kept it the same as
Kept
what
it
it is.
same.
now.
So 0121 is Munson Heights, that's aligned to the goal condition. I think you I think you're gonna wanna vote on 0108, which is these areas, although the other half is elementary school, but
And that's going from
R1 to R2.
And it's a 10-acre parcel.
10-acre parcel. All right, so
108.
108 really says R1, R2, and OS. Yeah, I make a motion to maintain existing zoning. And
I
that the
second.
plan, and that the plan land use matches accordingly
For 108.
for 108.
Okay. Motion's been made and second for SVN 0108 to maintain existing zoning. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Now we need 111, no, we need
012.
0121.
Yeah, so that was, Munson Heights, we recommended going from R1 to R2, aligning with the built condition there.
What area are we talking about? Exactly.
yellow one.
Big yellow, which is currently R,
That's already built out,
right.
so it's not going to affect anything. The houses are already there.
So how they managed to build R2
Right,
in the R1?
in an R1.
Anyway,
Oh, you mean they didn't follow regulations? Are you kidding?
Look at that.
That's an older neighborhood from the
houses are already there.
Ah.
The zoning got down.
Okay, make a motion.
Went down.
Okay, there's a motion being made.
SBN 0121. Go with the recommended land use of OPZ R2, only because it's already built out. And the according planned land use.
Second,
Okay, motion's been made.
and I second only because the homes are already in existence.
SVN 0121 to move to R2 zoning. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Okay,
That's the toughest part of it. But I, we might get that. Queenstown area, I spoke to you all briefly about this. We've done a lot of extensive outreach in this area. Residents, expressed a really strong desire to maintain its existing residential character along Queenstown Road, which is, this road that loops around here. Just to orient you, if you're familiar with Porterville Crossing, Lowe's, Walmart, all that there.
Yep.
This is just to the west of that. So there's existing industrial zoning, which is the purple that you see here. A lot of that has been in place for decades. A lot of that is within what's called the airport noise zone. We did have a request, or within public comments, the owner and the agent reiterated their request for, this is 586 Jones Road, so what's indicated here, reiterated the request for W2. The map before you recommended maintaining the W1 zoning in order to avoid intensification of the industrial zone.
So they currently use that.
in this area.
Trucking, it's just
I will say that,
current use,
like dump trucks. And
it's a,
Back to site,
Big man.
Unlimited services in the back.
in the back of it.
Yeah.
All right, well, I know I see them,
Yeah,
I see that out there, so it's
Yeah.
not part of this.
the owner wants W2 to accommodate outside storage of equipment and a contractor yard. And notice that there are no residentially zoned properties adjacent, but there is a residentially used property, so immediately to the north of, the request you see to the north, SVN 0400 is a woman that lives there, and she had actually requested to rezone to R2, where we had recommended essentially maintain all the zoning in this area. The things that we heard from the neighborhood, again, they want to maintain the existing low density residential character here. But, you know, there were some who own properties in this industrial area, and some folks were, you know, wanting to maintain their industrial zoning, but a lot of the complaints from the residents that we're hearing in kind of these residential areas are more about the trucks that are coming from this industrial area. So we do have a recommendation in the Region 3 plan to try to find an alternate route to access this industrial area, particularly.
What would that be?
I don't, somehow through or maybe through the rear of Porterfield Crossing, if there's a way to do it in a way that doesn't interact with the existing customer traffic there. There's an agreement that I have not been able to get my hands on, but I'm told by several folks who worked back when this Porterfield Crossing came in, they said that there was an original agreement not to connect over to Queenstown Road because they didn't want customer traffic coming out onto Queenstown Road, which is one thing, but it also precludes the potential for diverting that truck traffic off of Queenstown Road, this road here.
Right.
And
So you would,
it's all this truck traffic right now that only
Right.
access is through Queenstown.
so the
Road,
other
which is
option, what are you gonna do? Come around behind the Sam's?
It would
like-
have to be worked out.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
I'm not trying to do it either. but
Okay.
There may be some options. I mean, there's a lot of property, back here, and if some of those, I shouldn't talk, I mean.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
you
a-
can't,
I'm not a-
right, and that's really not a lot to be done there, in my opinion. I'm not an engineer either, but I know it's not a lot that could be done there in that back area.
So
All right, so
we keep it as W1, and because that's what you recommended, do you need a recommendation because there is no SAC recommendation?
or to stay W1.
Yes.
We
We
should,
Yeah?
should,
Okay.
yeah, we should.
I motion that CZ R3 SBN 0003 remain R1 or W1, and that the planned land use is matches accordingly.
A motion's been made on 0003 and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
This was, so 7959 Telegraph Road, this is the, Severn Mobile Home Park that extends from Telegraph Road on the left side of this image to Clark Station Road on the right side of the image. The very front part, which is currently unbuilt, it's a grassy area, it has C1 zoning. It's actually a little bit of a smaller area than what you see there. It was a consistency change in the map that's before you now that recommended removing a C1 portion on the front portion of that property and changing it to R5. The owner has written in requesting retaining that C1 in order to be able to have future retail that serves the neighborhood. So this would be essentially retaining a split zone on the property. And I think the way that we have it drawn there, it would reshape it a little bit to make a little bit more sense. But
Let me ask you something. On that particular property, that's where they have the mobile home park, right?
correct.
And so that's C1, so he wants to keep it for potential, what, I mean, if it's just open.
It is just, you're right. Currently, there's nothing there. They want to retain C1 for the potential for future retail that would serve the neighborhood.
Mm.
And it would be fronting on Telegraph. Do you want to pull up Street View with that? help?
please. Van,
Yeah.
I'll leave this up to you.
Well, that's again, is contributing to, and I don't know if he's keeping it at C1, it's not like they're building anything. I think he's gonna probably add more mobile homes, maybe, is that the intent? I mean,
Think
that's,
he said something- they said they want commercial for retail or
Commercial,
something,
more.
right?
Have commercial now.
They have commercial now,
They
right?
just want to retain it.
They want to keep it. And you said for potential,
Just a potential future retail to serve the neighborhood. So this is
Yeah, I know exactly where it is. So you go in there to go to the mobile home park, and then there's a community directly across the street, which is Jason's Landing, I believe.
Right, yep, know exactly where that's at.
Yeah.
The
so-
van is, it's the grass lot that borders Telegraph Road.
Right.
And OPZ recommends to keep it commercial.
I guess that's fine. I think I agree.
That. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, make a motion.
I motion to keep it C1 existing zoning, and that the plan land use, I guess, match accordingly. It's the same, right? We're keeping it the same.
I need that.
Four,
Consistency
four,
number.
six, something. But it's actually split zone, C1 and.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I can't see the numbers on the screen where I'm at.
Yeah, sorry,
SBN 4649.
SBN
again,
9.
it was a consistency change to align with the full planned land use that was applied to the site. So what you all are recommending is based on the public comment, retain the existing split C1 R5 zone.
Correct.
Yes.
Second.
Correct. Okay, motion's been made for consistency change SBN 4649 to remain split zoning C1 R5. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Okay. We move Lawrence.
I think the rest of these will be pretty easy. I just wanted to bring this up. We got some public testimony and then also written testimony from property owners on Ponderosa Drive. This is in the far western portion of the region. There was a mapping error in the PAV draft map. I'm not sure how the glitch happened, but the intent here is that what you see in circled in green there, those are residential lots that are primarily R2. We wanted there to be a consistency recommendation to remove the R1 portion at the rear of those lots, like the full lots R2, which is consistent with the full neighborhood. For some reason, some Glen Burnie numbers got overlaid onto this, and they shouldn't have been. So the intent is to remove those, but our intent is the residential lots here that you see, all R2, and then there's a little open space portion that would be OS. It's county owned. That's the intent. We had spoken with the property owners on the phone and explained that, but they testified anyway. So
Sure. So I moved that SVN 5165, 5166, and 5167 be made consistent to full R2 for consistency for the OPZ and the land use map match accordingly.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second to change the error from R1 to R2, so those lots are full R2 zoning.
So you would eliminate that open space.
No, no, the
No,
open space
that's for the
stays.
county,
Oh,
so
right.
it's different.
That's only it's doing.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Motion carries.
and this one I'm gonna bring up only because it was in public hearing, but this is off of, oh god, I didn't write down the address. It's Locust. Thank you. Oh, I did write it down, okay. The adopted zoning here is R2, but the gentleman that came in was really complaining about a zoning enforcement issue on this site, which is kind of beyond our zoning recommendation. We have some consistency recommendations that align R2 on these properties, but we've let him know that his issue is a zoning enforcement issue and zoning enforcement staff is working on it. So that's,
So we don't have to do it.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. So, sorry, can you go back for just a second? All those up front are consistency changes. The
Those are,
5185s and the,
yeah, there was a glitch in the, again, in the data, but yes, the intent is that the R2 would encompass these full property
Okay.
here.
Okay, and none of it has to do with open space. Okay, thank you.
And we have a handful of new applications. So pause on those, and so that's
That's it for Millersville, correct?
The Severn.
I'm sorry, Severn.
So we have to
So
approve.
now we need to
Yeah.
Go, Mel.
be
I
sure.
move that the planning advisory board does not support any consistency changes that reduce the quantity of open space zoning in any community unless we have in the Severn community.
No.
Sorry, where are we? Yeah, Severn,
Severn.
Severn community, unless we have discussed the specific parcel and decided otherwise. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Ayes. Motion carries.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that?
You may.
So for the tables you see in front of you that we pass along to the county council, for these areas where you're saying you do not support, what is the intent of the OPZ recommendation? If there's no recommendation on those, can we discuss them? Or,
The recommendation is that the existing open space stay the same, that there's not reduced for consistency reasons,
Without,
with, unless we adjust.
that makes sense.
To remaining in, with. And use. We're gonna make money with that. Change it back to something. What do you?
Is the plan,
If it's-
I guess.
zoning and plan of land use will match?
If they're inconsistent now, then they would remain inconsistent. It stays. Are they inconsistent now with the planned land use?
yes, that's why they're
Right.
No, that's good. Leave it. Leave it to begin.
Yep. Okay. Leaving it.
So you're proposing to leave the planned land use as is, but change the zoning.
Well, if,
Maintain it as it is, both zoning and land use.
On open space. Recommendation. Only that will reduce open
Yep.
space.
Yep.
Okay,
we voted in second, oh, so the
Let's
next
do-
thing is the,
now we need to do, Severn.
I move to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, planned land use changes and comprehensive zoning for Severn as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Okay,
New, sorry. New.
Okay, so now we're getting into the new application. So we won't be voting on this tonight, because you could have them. And we did hear about some of them at our public hearing, because they were introduced. So the first one is 326 Greenway. This was the GBRA dance studio, if you remember. So there, what's currently shown on the map is what we proposed in, in the PAD draft map, so it doesn't, it's not reflective of what, it's showing what we had proposed without this application, considered yet, so. So we had made the change to all OS, so it was based on a consistency change. And the applicant is requesting SP for the entire site in green, the green outline. And our preliminary recommendation is to split zone where there is the existing dance studio. So it's kind of the dark green corner in the top. That would be SB. And then the remainder of the site would be OS, support the existing and potential active or passive recreation uses.
So why is there green at the bottom? Dark green at the bottom?
Let's see. Patrick, you bring up geocoding. Yeah, that's what.
It's kind of confusing because, yeah, we'll show the existing zoning, and then that was reflective of what was a consistency change and what was.
Okay,
You know,
it looks like several
yeah,
overlays
so
in
it was
green.
just, we had proposed it would be all OS.
So this is the existing zoning, it's R5, surrounding and then bleeding onto the property a bit here, and then you have open space here. This building is, do you remember the dancers that came and
Yeah.
spoke? Okay, so this is where they have their dance studio, and then there's a surrounding parking area here. So the request is that this full property go to SB zoning.
Your recommendation is that?
That's the
Our
request.
That's the
That's
request.
the request.
Same recommendation, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
request. Thank you. Sorry.
It is late.
What we understood from zoning is that SB would actually limit what they could do in that area for recreation. So we are actually recommending that recreational area remain OS.
Right.
And that the dance studio be SB so that it allows for more flexibility for their dance.
Wouldn't the R5 portion become OS as well?
The rear part would be, yes, that portion would, but the.
Okay. So that's the other green, the dark green is
Right,
that,
right,
that's a
right,
change.
exactly.
becoming
Okay,
OS. Okay.
question though, the existing dance studio is happening in R5
It is R5 currently, yeah.
currently, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next.
Next.
Mhm.
So this next one was the one we sort of tabled, or, so we will actually need to vote on that previous one we had tabled that was, we wanted to discuss in conjunction with this new application. So the new application is for 1007 Crane Highway. And it's the portion of the green represents the parcel. The blue outline is the area that would actually be changing. So that area that's outlined in blue, would be what the portion that would go to C4. So it's currently R15 on the back and then split C3 and C4. And they are asking for C4 for that blue area.
And to be clear, so this is your snow cone stand here, right? This is the same owner that owns this existing C4 property also owns this property back here. Part of the use of this bleeds onto the back of this property, so more or less in the area that you're seeing here. So the request is, can you align my property back here, the C4, with what is on the front part of the property? They don't necessarily want to change the rear portion back here. And so
We don't need to vote on that one. tonight.
No,
This
but
one,
does
we have
this
to go
change
back to the
the
other.
way you think about that? GBA 0017.
So for 0017, we had recommended C3 for that, but given that this, rear portion is also considering for C4, the question is, do we change that 0017 recommendation to C4 as well?
The initial concern with that was that this area is within the town center policy area. So that was why our initial recommendation was to maintain C3 on GVN 0017. So
Yeah, and we didn't.
We'll discuss it. If we need to revisit 17, we will.
Well, we have to vote on 17.
Oh,
1017.
we have to vote on 17 tonight.
no, we
Oh,
we
no.
bring
Oh, we
that
can table
up.
both?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it together. Okay.
Okay.
That might be good here.
Yes, 17, we know we haven't voted.
Just for the record,
Okay.
that's my
That was
daughter's
one.
favorite snowball stand, just want everybody to know. And I'm not joking.
So then we have 8120 Oakwood Road. In the application, it's currently split zone R5 and R15. It's majority R5 with sort of that sliver of R15. The request from the owner was R15. We are, this, I guess, for this parcel, there's a single house on it currently fronting Oakwood Road. And it's kind of a standalone parcel in between this residential, the subdivision to the east. And then there's a townhome community to the west, which is currently zoned R15, but we are recommending as a consistency change to go to R10. So now the recommendation is R10 on the west side. We're recommending that this one parcel also go to R10, not R15 like the owner's requesting, but R10, so that it would allow for additional density for some, you know, additional housing opportunity there. But there is concern that it's right next to the subdivision. This might be a good one to look at. You want?
I'm about to say, how much housing can they put on it?
Yes.
120.
It's pretty loaded, right? Unless I'm. Well, they pull up the street, but I think it's home.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up.
So it's not quite an acre, it's 0.91 acres, 0.91 acres.
It's late. Yeah, there you go. See, so that's what.
So this is, yeah, so here's the aerial, this is the,
Right,
we had recommended a consistency change to R10 here, so.
on the back where the townhomes are, that's the consistency change,
It's
it's on the west,
but we're recommending it go to R10.
okay?
And then that house in the middle is kind of in between that townhome community and then the subdivision, you know, the single family home subdivision. So it's kind of this standalone home front.
That's the one that sits on, right, it sits there, faces Oakwood, I got you. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we would expect that single family residential neighborhood might not want additional density, but it is, you know, it's close to a school. It's, you could fit potentially a few more homes in there, but.
Two maybe?
So initial recommendation, you know, pending public input, we don't have that yet, but.
So, just out of curiosity, why would you recommend the already built townhouses change from R15 to R10?
That's the density at which they are built currently. And we don't anticipate them changing over the next 20 years, and so it's really aligning the built condition with, or the zoning with the built condition.
I don't see a size of that property. There. What's the acreage?
Like 9 acres, point,
It's almost an acre.
almost 0.96, something like that.
All right.
Okay, so yes, this is two separate applications, but it's two parcels right next to each other, 7410 and 7412 DNA Boulevard. Gentleman spoke about it at a public hearing. It's currently C2. They asked for either C3 or a mixed use zoning designation. Our preliminary recommendation is to support MXT, which is what is directly across. That's that large Glen Burnie complex area that we are recommending rezoning to MXT as well. The Glen Burnie, you know, Cromwell light rail station is just north here, so to us it's sort of an appropriate use for that, being right on DNA and right across from that Cromwell mixed use.
So this is what we're talking about.
We don't know what.
So in that parcel there, the old school and behind that is the county has plans to do something there.
There's been
wasn't
an
there?
RFP,
Transportation.
mixed use transportation.
Mixed use
The
transportation.
recommendation.
We just
Can you,
approved the budget.
review for us, please, because there was an amendment last night on the mixed use bill, or maybe, well, last. Are we still going to see that before December 4th? We will, because we'll see it on that Monday, and then we meet on that Wednesday. Okay, thank you.
So if the bill was amended, the first meeting in December, that would be the last amendment that they could do.
They could
Yeah.
amend it again.
December 2nd. And then you would know what all the amendments are by the time you meet. on December 4th.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, this is for 8450 Alpenton Road. The current zoning is primarily C1 with some OS and R1 as well. We have a consistency change for this property to go to all C1. And the owner is requesting C4 for the entire property. It's, you know, where the old Lucky's site is, it's off of Jumper's Hole, where the B&A trail is, right before you get to Route 2. So for this one, we are recommending retaining our C1 recommendation for that. It opens up a whole lot of other uses there, which is, you know, it's.
And what size is that parcel? Is that
3.1 acres.
3.1? And does the bike trail border that property?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So the bridge,
No, it's not.
the bridge is further down, okay, and the circle is further
The
down
circle's further down.
with east-west highway, okay.
Okay.
Okay, the last one. This is 61 Gambrels Road. The current zoning is R1, RLD, and OS. With a consistency change, we have recommended R1 and RLD. It was just a sliver of OS kind of at the top there that we recommended aligning with the property boundary. So it's currently, or it would be recommended, our current recommendation is R1 and RLD. The owner is requesting R2 for the entire site. And our preliminary recommendation is to retain R1 and RLD to not upzone.
So would you move that the boundary is correct, right? Yeah, I'm sorry, is the boundary correct,
The green, talking about the green.
the green line? Or would you make it a
Generally, yeah.
consistency change as well as
So there are consistent,
changing?
yeah, what you're seeing up there is there are consistency changes that are currently recommended that,
Right, okay,
that,
I wouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, just to be clear, this is the Grace, Grace Point Community Church.
Okay, can you go back to the old Lucky site real quick? That's it right there. So that property, you're recommending C1. And that's you said 3 acres or 4 acres? 3 or 4 acres. And it borders, it's on the bike trail. There's a,
The bike trail is that gray.
yeah. Okay. It just seems like there might be a better use since it's on the bike trail. whether it be, I don't know what would better use be, but mixed use or, I'm just thinking, because it's on the bike trail, we want to make sure we get it right, because there's not too many 3-acre parcels that border the bike trail that come up.
Yeah, we had some significant, like, we had some conversations about this during our SAP meeting, because it hasn't redeveloped that, it's been primarily C1 for a while, so it is a consideration that it's not redeveloped at C1 as of now, but do you want to open it up to C4? That's another question, and what.
I don't think C4 is the answer, but it does, on the other side of the bike trail is all, built all commercial, heavy commercial.
Yeah, C3 and C4.
Yeah, it's the back of the buildings there.
Okay, well,
Okay, we'll discuss it.
yeah, so just for the public, then I think, Gus, I think you'll be opening, comment period now through December 2nd. I'll let you handle that. And then in terms of next steps, the public hearing on any of these new applications would happen on December 4th. And you all would deliberate the recommendations at that stage. And then we anticipate county council, this would go to them early next year.
Okay, so to make notice now through December 2nd, we'll accept written testimony on these new applications. And if you want to speak, you need to register to testify at the December 4th public hearing meeting. And you can do that at our website. So at that point in time, on December 4th, we will discuss new applications. Anything else?
Who would like to make a motion on approval of the plan document?
Move to recommend approval of the Region 3 plan recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any previously noted comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion's been made for Region 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Anything administrative?
You get next week off?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We'll be back here on Wednesday, December 4th, once again at 5 p.m. Very similar to this meeting, we'll start with the public hearing on regions 1 and 3. Comments will be limited to just the new applications again, as they already had an opportunity to comment on older applications to the site. Following that public hearing component, we'll roll into deliberation. We'll start with Region 9, because they've been first to you guys this whole process, and you already heard their public comment tonight. Before going into Regions 1 and 3. We have had sign-ups open for Region 1. It's slipping my mind how many people are signed up right now. But Region 3 just opened for sign-ups, and they're open until December 2nd at 11:09 p.m. So with that in mind, we're not sure how many folks are gonna sign up to give testimony from Region 1 and 3. Which could, it could be lengthy, and then we might not get through everything that's on our agenda for December 4th, which is why we're holding that date for December 11th, on our calendars. And that's it from me.
Okay, anything else from board members?
Nope.
Motion's been made to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? This meeting is adjourned.